we are going to be talking about probably the event of this month in Hong Kong and one of the most important events this year in Hong Kong. Kai Tak is, I think, a part of this renaissance.
Kai Tak will be an icon for Hong Kong, definitely. I mean, I think there is no doubt on that. But not just for Hong Kong, but also for the region. Hong Kong Airport was already an icon. People of Hong Kong, it will become like a landmark. It will become a destination, right? Like, it will be 24/7 open. It will be like, it has a lot of what we call term that we like to describe Kai Tak is sportainment. Hong Kong is great at doing retail. It's great at doing like integrating shopping malls and everything. So that's why the word sportainment actually kind of like get mixed, because we have a lot of F&B, a lot of retail connected and integrated within the sports park. So yeah, I mean, in the design phase, you have to think about how to make the venue future-proof, right? So it's a huge investment for any city actually to do a stadium or even a sports park like this. And I'm very curious to see, I'm very eager to see how the people of Hong Kong accepts this new member of the city. So our challenge to those people will be, why do you have to go to Wan Chai? There's going to be plenty of bars, there's going to be plenty of spaces, and there is a huge park as well that they're going to be utilized for the tents of the different sponsors of different bars. So actually you can stay in Kai Tak. You don't really need to go to Wan Chai if you want to continue the party.
Welcome to the last meeting of the week, guys. We can edit all of that. I think this is a very special episode because I was telling the guys, I was telling David and Ismael, welcome Ismael, that this is really the last meeting of the week. I enjoy double this type of episodes because I can do things like this. I have been looking at these cold beers for a very long time, and you know, I really don't enjoy that much drinking in the morning as I used to do before. So I'm gonna open one for me. Do you want yours?
Perfect, yeah.
All
Let's
right.
not keep them warm.
Thank you to Borja who sent me the beers. Cheers. So yeah. Now this apart from this anecdote, this podcast is especially significant because we are going to be talking about probably the event of this month in Hong Kong and one of the most important events this year in Hong Kong, which is the grand inauguration, the grand opening of the Kai Tak Sports Park.
Correct.
Did I say the name correct?
Correct.
Behind this important project that has been going on for many years, I read yesterday, I don't know if the data that I got was correct, that there are 140 companies behind, more than 3,000 people working on the project. And if there is one that I would like to, let's say, that I could say is the most important name, is Populous, which is one of the coolest studios in the world. I had the chance to study a little bit of the history and I became amazed. And representing Populous, I have Ismael, that is a senior associate in Populous and has been working this project for a very long time, and also fellow Spaniard. So welcome, Ismael. Ismael Martinez Merchan, how are you doing?
Thank you. Very well. Happy to be here on the last meeting of the week, and pleasure to kind of like tell you all the details that can be shared about Kai Tak Sports Park.
Is this your last meeting of the week, or you have something to do after this?
It is actually truly the last meeting of the week.
Fantastic.
So I'm very, very happy and relaxed right now. Even happier that we crack up a beer as well.
Bravo. We have a full fridge with them, so it's okay. I have a lot of questions with Kai Tak, but just to give people, I like to give context regarding the human, the person that is in front of me. And we have a similar path in a sense that I think we are both from a province in Spain. We got to Madrid eventually, and then we got catapulted to Asia. Your journey around China has been way more extensive than mine. I spent only 1 year in Hangzhou, but if I don't remember correctly, you've been in Shenzhen, Shanghai,
That's right.
Hangzhou now. I even have this. I was really studying you yesterday. Why? I mean, it makes sense to if you are from Vitoria.
Correct. Yeah.
Vitoria is an amazing city in North Spain. I think that people from Vitoria are extremely kind. If there is, David, this is for 100%. I haven't met an from Vitoria in my life.
We are not that many people either in Vitoria.
but take the compliment.
No, yeah, good.
People are
Vitoria
very chill. People are very chill in
Yeah.
Vitoria.
It's not actually super well known because obviously we are from a region like Basque Country of Spain, and I always like to do this comparison between the cities on the Basque Country and the cities on Australia. That everybody knows Melbourne, everybody knows Sydney, but nobody or little people actually have been in the capital of Australia in
Canberra.
Similar thing happens with the Basque Country. Like many people knows Bilbao because of the Guggenheim. A lot of people know San Sebastian because Pinchos, La Concha, the beach and everything. Not many people have been in Vitoria. But yeah, I mean, everybody that is listening to the podcast, I welcome them to come to Vitoria and visit.
It's nice, and I mean, very close to La Rioja, amazing
True.
wine, amazing food. Very close to Pamplona, which is one of my favorite places. My brother studied in your same university.
All right, okay.
Yeah, so I going from Pamplona to Oviedo, I used to pass by Vitoria. So no, I would love to spend more time. But my question is, what makes you one day to say I'm gonna go to Shenzhen?
Oh yeah, that was a long time ago. But yeah, no, I think it was more out of necessity and a mix of necessity and curiosity, right? For me to come to Asia. I always been attracted to this part of the world. It's like very exotic. I grew up like watching all these documentaries about Thailand, China, and the Japan. I was actually during my university offered a grant to go study Japanese in Kyoto, so I did that. So I always been kind of like attracted to this part of the world. Many people say like, oh, with Spanish, why you don't go to South America because it's easier for you for the language. Beautiful place as well, but I don't know why I was more attracted to the challenge of coming to Asia. So I think it was a bit of that. I grew up like watching a lot of documentaries about Asia, and then when I finished the Masters of Architecture, the construction crisis started, like the global crisis, actually, global financial crisis that impacted a lot Spain and Europe overall for the on the construction industry. So I was thinking like, maybe this is time to actually try my luck. I mean, China at that moment was kind of like ramping up in terms of construction. The whole Asia was kind of like booming. So I said like, why not try it out? So I started looking on the internet. It was like I didn't even know how to find a job, not even in Spain. So imagine finding a job in Asia, right? But yeah, digging through some websites, I managed to find one that it was kind of like put you in contact with studios in China. So initially, I was supposed to come to Hong Kong. My first interview was with somebody from Hong Kong. And it was very quickly. So as soon as I started sending CVs out into Asia, I sent it all over the world as well. I sent to Netherlands, I sent to Germany, but Europe was a little bit more slow, and that actually was a reflection of how the industry was at that moment. And Asia, every time I was sending an email out, I was receiving an answer. And probably 8 out of 10, the answer was positive. Obviously, I wanted to do a little research, the interviews, things like that to kind of like set up my career path. But yeah, when Europe was not very responsive and then switch a bit more the focus into Asia. So in the end, I had a chance I have like 3 choices in the end after like digging interviews, checking the companies if they were actually suitable for me or for my interest in architecture. I got finally offers to go to Kuala Lumpur, an offer to go to Singapore, and an offer to go to Hong Kong. So Kuala Lumpur, in the end, it didn't went quite through because they wanted me for a project that in the end I didn't get. So it was like, okay, I was not that interested. Singapore, then they said like, yeah, we're interested on you and your portfolio and your experience. Why we don't set up more calls with different people? And then at that time, it was already like, I think 6 months after I finished university. So it was kind of like a little bit itchy to start like, okay, once you leave. I was working on something in Spain at that time, like particular jobs, but they were very small scale, they were very slow. The mood on the construction industry wasn't great. So I was like, I was getting a little bit itchy to leave, right? And to start exploring and start my adventure. So then when Hong Kong told me like, we really like you. We want you next week. We want you next week to start working. And everything was good, like paid, that everything was, it was kind of like ticking all the boxes. But it was one thing that it was kind of like a little bit weird that they said like, well, I know that you have done the interview for Hong Kong, but we actually want you for our branch in Shenzhen. And they told me like, don't worry, Shenzhen and Hong Kong, they're super close. It's like super similar cities. They're very, very, very close. You could even like live in Hong Kong and go to Shenzhen. The reality was far from the truth. Yeah, off I went. I checked on the map. I never heard about Shenzhen at that time. That was like 2010, 2011. So it was like 15 years ago. And yeah, I was like, okay, Shenzhen. I dig a little bit. And the first thing that it came up into internet about Shenzhen was that it was the place where they were building the iPhones. iPhones that back then it was starting getting a little bit more trendy, right? Like iPhone 3 or something like that. It was like one of the first iPhones. And they were producing them in Shenzhen. So that's the only information I had about the city.
Yeah.
But I kind of like said, that makes it even more interesting. I don't know anything about the city. At Hong Kong, I have a lot of information. So it felt like a little bit of a exploration, you know, like one of those people from the 15th century that goes to the new world, right? That you cannot find any information about it. And I have to tell you that the experience could have been better. I mean, it was like fantastic. It was wild. It was savage. It was like, I got scammed. I got like, but I don't know, the experience was fantastic. So it was worth it to go into the unknown, let's say.
I think we are more or less the same age. I'm from 1987.
86, yeah.
So I think we share probably the entrance into the job market was probably not the luckiest.
Yeah,
it was the worst time. Yeah. It was the worst time. And at the same time, because I came to China myself in 2012, China was El Dorado. I always say this. In general, everything you said, wild, got scammed, couldn't understand anything, no information. I can understand everything. I share, I remember every point.
You have to live that, right? You have to live it to understand.
You have to live it to understand. In terms of architecture, actually, I don't know if you know this book. I think it was a part of an amazing time for China. Is the last decade of those 30 years of super development in what Chris Provost named Beautified China, which is that process of, you know, raising the level of real estate through landmarks, stadiums, museums, libraries, and I don't think that has happened at that scale anywhere else in the world in history. So I understand. I mean, I think not making the choice would have been probably a bad idea. And when you are here in this type of environment, it's hard to think to go back to that rhythm back in Europe. Yeah. Things go slower and so on. So no, Chris, he did an amazing podcast. Hello, Chris. I think that Chris is going to listen to this podcast because he's a great architect lover, and we had great conversations. So then you go to Shanghai. You end up in Hong Kong. Did you come to Hong Kong to work for the stadium project, or it happened? How did you end up being involved in Populous?
So yeah, after Shenzhen, it was fantastic. And sorry, I wanted to make a point that you mentioned that these in the beautifying China and related to this book, the scale of like these projects have never been seen before in the world, but not just the scale, it was also the time frame. I mean, all these have happened on the last 20 years, 20, I would say that, like 20
He
years,
mentions
20, 30
30,
years.
but 2030
Yeah,
anyway.
2030.
Yeah.
No, actually, yeah, that's a good point. Shenzhen started actually being what it is like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And the reason why the interest of China, maybe, I mean, not like an expert on history, but it was like, okay, because Hong Kong is very close, so they could have had some synergies on between those cities. And we are saying this kind of like that echoing even until now, right? So 30 years ago, Shenzhen was just like a fisherman town.
Yes.
And now, look, it's one of the biggest cities in the world and the region. I mean, the what so-called the GBA, the Greater Bay Area, right? Like Hong Kong, Macau, Guangzhou, Dongguan. That actually has this population of Spain, like 45,000 people, and everything's well connected through road, speed trail. There is like 3 or 4 major airports. So it's like a lot of things happening in this area.
Yes, it's very exciting to live here. Maybe it's not, let's say, the most optimistic moment, even though I think we are getting back to smiling times. But 100%, like, and I feel more and more rooted here. So this is why I am very happy when things start to finally race again. So Kaitak is, I think, a part of this renaissance, if you want. From your perspective, what do you think that this project means for the people of Hong Kong, or for the city of Hong Kong now?
So I think like Kaitak will be an icon for Hong Kong, definitely. I mean, I think there is no doubt on that. But not just for Hong Kong, but also for the region. And maybe we can dwell a little bit more on that later on. But I think, kind of like put my hand in the fire right now, but I think it has not been in the world a sports complex development that big happening at the same time in such a prime location of a prime city. So Kaitak, well, we know that is like a state-of-art sports complex, multi-sport complex. But we need to think about that the place where Kaitak is located right now is where the old airport of Hong Kong was. I mean, Hong Kong airport was already an icon, right, for Hong Kong and for the booming of Asia, let's say, because like a lot of people were coming through here. There is even like videos of Jean-Claude Van Damme coming through that airport, right? One of the most dangerous airports in the world as well for the pilots to land, so you have to be very skillful. So the location of the Kaitak actually is fantastic. I mean, it's like super close to the city center, to be honest, even though a lot of people think that it will be too far for the Hong Kong Sevens, but it's very, very close. I go there every day to work, so it's like 20 minutes by the new MTR lines that they have developed. They have harbor views, and what we are always trying to kind of like when we speak about Kaitak, we say that is an urban oasis on this concrete jungle that it is Hong Kong, right? So it's a big contrast from what you think that Hong Kong is to what Kaitak has been designed for. It's like a green, lush park with low-rise buildings, very open, very permeable. When Hong Kong, normally, if you think about Hong Kong, you just see these kind of like massive towers of concrete, all similar to one to another. And that gets overwhelming, and you don't know how people actually could be walking underneath of these kind of like gigantic structures. So Kaitak is kind of like the opposite of that. So that makes it even more iconic. So what it will be for the micro scale to the macro scale, let's say, for the people of Hong Kong, it will become like a landmark. It will become a destination, right? Like, it will be 24/7 open. It will be like, it has a lot of what we call term that we like to describe Kaitak is sportainment, that it has a lot of sports component, but also entertainment. And it could be like a one-stop of destination, that it will have like restaurants, it will have retail, it will have sports content, obviously, but that could be transformed into an entertainment district with concerts that we're going to see soon with Coldplay. But also it has plenty of activities on the street. You don't have to actually have like a pay ticket to get in. Like you're gonna have like 18-meter high climbing walls in the street. It is
For free.
it will be, well,
Yeah, you have
security
to pay,
wise, it will
yes.
be operated, but it will be one part that it could be actually tried for free as well. So it has so many different activities in the park that this is one of the things that we wanted to do with the design, that we wanted to create a precinct that is constantly activated and people could come and utilize it all the time. So it was a lot of, may see other sports precincts in the world that they are kind of like enclosed, that you need to kind of like get in to and go through a security check to access the places. Yeah, it will be that because there is a certain level of safety that you need to maintain. But the idea, we wanted to integrate the sports park into the community. So that is in the micro scale. But in the macro scale, it is going to be as well part of the national games that are going to be celebrated in between Hong Kong, Macau, and Guangzhou this year in 25.
Mm-hmm.
And it will put Hong Kong back in the map in terms of events, sports, entertainment, concerts, because until now you have seen, I don't know if well, you probably have been here in Hong Kong for a long while, but how many concerts have you seen happening in Hong Kong in the last 10, 15 years? Like,
I mean, there have been a few,
type
but not
A.
significant.
Yeah, class
No.
A entertainment concerts, right?
No.
So most of them have gone to Macau, like because they have casinos, they have the infrastructure, and the most important thing is that you need to offer to the event organizers a safe place that they can actually control, whether there is for noise control or weather control, right? And that's something that we have achieved with the new stadium, because Hong Kong had a stadium before, right? Has the Happy Valley Stadium, 3,000 spectators, fantastic for the Hong Kong Sevens, right in the core commercial of the city. But it was too close to residentials to organize concerts, so noise was an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't have a roof that you could control the weather. So if you have, we have seen what happened with Coldplay in Kuala Lumpur, I think a few months back, that it was raining during the day of the concert, and it was a big mess for the event organizers, for the for Coldplay itself, and for the spectators that you actually do these events for. So it was a big complaint from everybody when you don't have that control over different constraints. So
Yes.
KaiTag will solve all of these constraints, and then operators, event organizers, event producers, they actually are looking to Hong Kong very interested, because they will have a venue that it will be able to host all these events. Technologically, it will be very advanced because it's just been released.
Mm-hmm.
And they will have as well the possibility to control the noise, to control the weather, to close or open the roof of their wheel. And it's in one of the prime cities where the people are very, very hungry for entertainment and for concerts and for events. We have seen the rise of Cantopop, K-pop, etc., etc.,
Yeah.
not just sports.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Zero risk if you organize an event. I did go to actually the Coldplay of the same tour in Bangkok 1 year ago. So I'm actually not that sad that I cannot go to this one. I'm not going to be in Hong Kong for that date. But I cannot imagine what would happen if it rained. I think your statement, again, we are talking with a beer open, so this is not scientific, in things that don't regard the KaiTag. But I would actually agree with you. There is not a project of this scale in the world. If we count the square footage value of the area, because it's prime location, because Hong Kong land could have listed for residential and make a lot of money. So why do you think the city decided to make such an investment? Because it is crazy. What was? Let me rephrase. Let's because somehow you actually we actually went into that. What was the briefing from Hong Kong government at the beginning? Or let's say from the authorities, what was the initial part of the project?
Um, so I think that, well, this is way back before I even, I think, came to China. But yeah, when the land got vacated, when the airport, I think it was 1997,
Mhm.
moved to Chiplacok, that land was actually vacated. And the government, as you mentioned, like I think was deciding, okay, what do we do with this big piece of land? I mean, we need to kind of like make something out of it. So I think it was, again, I haven't done a proper research on this, but so take this information with a pinch of salt. But I think it was two main ideas from the government to develop this land. One, as you said, like residential, because that will give a lot of value as
Yeah.
well for the government. Residential, Hong Kong was in need for more residential as well. So that could be one of the options. But then it was another part of the government that they said, like, okay, we don't have a proper sports park. Yes, we have sports ground distributed around the city, but we don't have a proper sports park that you will say, like, okay, recognize sports park of Hong Kong. So I think that idea of offering or transforming this land for the people of Hong Kong
Mhm.
was probably a really great idea of whoever actually decided to go for the sports option, because we've seen at that time the sports industry was actually increasing. They were like not just the benefits of the health in the community, but also the whole industry that revolves around sports and a sports complex. We've seen as well the increase of the race of the entertainment as well, like concerts. There is much more concerts. I mean, 20 years ago, we didn't have the phenomenon that there is today, like Taylor Swift's, Coldplay, that, and those people were not actually coming too much into Asia. They were doing like a very quick tour, but it wasn't because of lack of the interest of the people. It was because of lack of the infrastructure on those cities. So I think that the government took that decision that we need to make that move to actually make Hong Kong even more interesting for this industry that actually is kind of like snowballing. I mean, the entertainment industry has increased so much in the last 10, 15 years, and you see that like more leagues coming up, more research about the health benefits of sports, and also not just the benefits in terms of for the community that they are big, but also the benefits for the city, because the more you bring entertainment, the more you will have interest of people from the region, the more people will come, and that will be translated into more people wanted to eat outdoors or be staying for a weekend in Hong Kong.
And in this case, I mean, I thanks to the new venue and thanks to Spotify, because now artists, they need to do more tours to make money. Hopefully, we have a lot of more concerts. One of the things that one of the curiosities that I have is that when you design a project like this, you have in my head, you can add ingredients to this sauce, but maybe two key concepts. One of them is to make something that stands out, that is landmarkish, which is, I think, is important for a city to be recognizable. In Hong Kong, we are extremely blessed to have a lot of those landmarks, but you can always do with one more. But then at the same, and then there might be another thought philosophy, which is trying to do something that integrates with the city. How does this project where does this project strike the balance between these two things?
I'll need to explain a little bit what is the concept design behind.
Please. No, absolutely.
That. But because it has these two components, and somehow you have to have a balance between both of them, right? Because sometimes when you do something very, very, very iconic, you can actually shoot yourself in the foot, because then people are afraid to approach that icon, right? They see it as a kind of like such a big landmark that people are afraid to kind of like. And also, if you build a big landmark, you kind of like want to let it breathe a little bit, kind of like being a little bit separated from the city, right? Luckily for the brief, we needed to have 3 venues in the Kai Tak Sports Park, and it was like a brief of like I think 3,000 pages of like what it needs to be on this sports park, and what should serve, right? Because it cannot serve just one purpose. So Populus decided to, okay, first, how we gonna manage, because the land actually wasn't, it's a big land, but it wasn't that land for all the amount of stuff that they wanted to put in, right? So it has been a lot of financial studies, and I don't want to dwell too much on that, but one thing that it was very important from the feasibility studies that I think it was KPMG that did for Kaitak, even before Populus actually was involved. They did a financial studies for the park, right? And they said like, okay, will this park with entertainment and sports component will be sufficient to do the maintenance of the sports park? And because Hong Kong is not like I don't know, like Madrid, right? That it has like a Real Madrid with like a team that it has a lot of fans. There is not actually a team in Hong Kong that could associate to one stadium that it will bring. That it has like a big fan base, right? So that was a issue that how many times you will be able to fill up the stadium. So then they decided to kind of like open the door to accommodate a lot of retail. And Hong Kong is great at doing retail. It's great at doing like integrating shopping malls and everything. So that's why the word sportainment actually kind of like get mixed, because we have a lot of F&B, a lot of retail connected and integrated within the sports park. And that actually was given the opportunity to offer a more approachable solution for the park. So yeah, going back to the highlight idea, Hong Kong Stadium, we understood in the brief that it has to be the landmark. It has to be the main key point of the park, and it will need to be a recognizable. So 50,000 spectator building. And the design idea behind that was that we needed to provide something that is meaningful for the Hong Kong. So do you know how Hong Kong was being called like 50 years ago?
No.
It was called the Pearl of the Orient.
Yes.
The Pearl of the Orient. So we actually, that is the idea that is driven the design of the main stadium. So that's why you see like a stadium that is like a rounds, like that. The color actually is not casual. It's like trying to imitate the idea of the pearl. So the Pearl of the Orient will be the stadium, but then the other two venues, we needed to make sure that they were actually working with the city. So, and we didn't want to make the three venues. So we have like 50,000 spectator stadium, 10,000 indoor arena, 5,000 sports ground. We didn't want these venues to compete against each other. So we understood that the purpose of the main stadium was for major events, Hong Kong Sevens, major leagues. And the other two venues were more for concerts, local leagues, and more engaging the community. So we said like, okay, we leave the main stadium into what we call the South Precinct, because we have some master planning challenges there. It's like South Precinct for the main stadium, Pearl, iconic, beautiful facade. And then the other two buildings that they're going to be sitting on the North Precinct, they're going to be a little bit more tuned down. They're going to be breaking down. They're going to be very approachable with a lot of connections to make sure that the entire sports park is very permeable.
Okay.
And the reason why I explained the retail necessity to run the building, we said like, okay, with this retail that we need to integrate as well, we're going to put it closer to the community to be the first anchor into the park. So we said like, with the retail, we lure the people into it. Then when they are at the edge of the North Precinct, they see that this big monster that is being created is very approachable, is very permeable, is very kind to human, because it's like wide avenues, low-rise buildings, a lot of sun, a lot of greenery, a lot of trees. So then they will not be afraid to approach the sports park. They will not be afraid to go through, and they will actually embrace it as part of the city. So I think if you ask me what it will be my favorite part of the park, I think is the beautiful idea behind the master plan, how it has been designed to be fully integrated with the community, with the people of Hong Kong, and with something that they like it's like food, retail, to kind of like be the first anchor to attract people into the venue. Because the last thing that we wanted to happen with Kai Tak is that it becomes a white elephant.
Yes.
That it becomes like something that it happens with all the Olympic stadiums that they're kind of like left out later on and nobody uses. We wanted these to be stressing. We wanted the Kai Tak Sports Park to be working at its maximum capacity because they need to make sure that they generate revenue, that they work, the sports park works for the people, works for the people of Hong Kong, the community. So it could have one day a big event, the next day could have you can go and play badminton with your colleagues, the next day it will be a concert. So we want these to be constantly working out to make sure that is for the use of Hong Kong people. I don't know if that answered your question, but that was a very long answer.
It's an amazing question. Another follow-up on the question. Normally, a stadium of these characteristics, a project of this scope, what is the lifespan of something like this? How farther down the road are you designing for? And because I know that you're going to probably integrate this, how do you make sure that the stadium stays relevant during that lifespan?
So yeah, I mean, in the design phase, you have to think about how to make the venue future-proof, right? And obviously you need to, and it's very tricky because with the stadiums, it's such a big development that takes so long to build that during that period of time, there is new technologies that are coming up. For example, when we started designing the stadium, 5G didn't exist, right? So in the middle of the process, we have to say we need to integrate 5G on the stadiums because if you open in 2025 a stadium with 4G, it's already obsolete, right? So that's a very good point. Future-proof is one key item for the stadiums. But, sorry, what was the other question? How long the lifespan of this one? So it's a huge, huge investment for any city, actually, to do a stadium or even a sports park like this. So the lifespan for these buildings, again, this is mainly in the structure part and things like that, but I think the idea is to make them at least structurally sound for 100 years. Obviously, during those 100 years, there needs to be a lot of process to kind of like renovate it, maintenance, and adjusting to the new technologies, obviously. But yeah, I think the span, I think the idea is to kind of like have it at least for that amount of time. Yes, 80, 100 years. Obviously, during that period, from now to in 80 years' time, in 2100, you will have had several renovations into the stadium. So we've seen that happening Madrid with the Real Madrid. We have seen that happening in Manchester United. Renovation is part of the process to make sure that the venue keeps relevant.
Yes.
Because not just for the new sports that are being created, but also the new technologies and the demand of the spectators to have new experiences within the sports or the entertainment. 50 years ago, you didn't know what spider cam is for a venue, right?
Yeah.
But now it's a must to have spider cams. You need to at least think of the provisions for these elements. You may have or may not have spider cam, but you need to think about the provisions for these elements.
Yeah, otherwise you're probably not eligible for certain events that need to have certain media coverage and so on. It's very interesting. You mentioned Barcelona, Madrid, you mentioned Manchester, also Barcelona. There are many others. I don't know if it's my perception, but there has been lately a boom in stadium or arena building, both in Asia, but not only Europe, in the US. I mean, there new stadiums are popping up left and right. Is this my perception, or is it just like the media coverage has become better because of social media? Is there a boom now for stadium, for venue buildings?
I think the boom is broader than that. It's not just, the idea of like developing a stadium or designing a stadium is a huge investment for any city, for any government. So it needs to be carefully thought what is the purpose of that, right? But who is driving this boom? And the question is like, who is driving? The driver is the people that they want these events to happen, and every city see the benefits, social, economic, to have these events happening in their cities. So obviously, to have these events, concerts, sports, whatever, you need to have the infrastructure. So there is that boom is not driven by just like, okay, we want to build a stadium. It's like, how we're gonna be using the stadium, and what it will be the benefits for the city. So I think like boom is not just in the construction or architecture industry. Is in the people. They are actually bringing more interest. Hyrox, for example. Hyrox is a great example that there is an event now that requires infrastructure, marathons. So all that has been a boom in the sports and entertainment industry, but that is driven by the people that they are interested in that. And for example, Las Vegas is a clear example of that we are seeing now this happening in Macau as well. 50 years ago, Las Vegas was purely a gambling city.
Yeah. Now
is changing or is evolving, also actually evolving into being a more entertainment destination. If you now think of Las Vegas, you don't think about a place where you just go and throw your bags at the roulette. You're thinking like there's concerts there. Have you seen the Sphere of Las Vegas?
I wanted to ask you about that. I'm fascinated by the Sphere. Designed by Populous. That's why Ismael is bringing it up. Yes, very good corporate.
Yeah,
man.
Exactly. Yeah, trying to. No, but it is true. I mean, now Las Vegas is being changed into a entertainment destination.
Sure.
And that boom of stadiums, arenas, is driven by the interest of people to willing to go into these events.
It's right what you say. I have the feeling that before, the events were kind of the salt and pepper on the gambling. Meaning that Celine Dion has been playing daily concerts in Las Vegas for the last 30 years, which to me is mind blowing. But anyway, or David Copperfield has been doing illusionisms in Las Vegas for however that long. There are people that just are residents, like Carl Cox in space. They are just residents in Las Vegas. Now I have the feeling that the gambling is the salt and pepper on the entertainment. People go for the entertainment, then they might spend a couple of hours on the roulette. But they go for the UFC, for the boxing, for the concerts, for the events, for the F1, for many things.
But who is driving all this?
It's the evolution of the entertainment.
But the people, the people interest, right?
Yes.
I mean, there is not that interest on gambling. There is more interest in sports, healthy life. I don't know if you've seen, like, as sports architects, we need to follow a lot of the trends of the people, right? Because then there is many things that you can add into the stadium design to enhance the experience of the people. And this is I think like what Populous is doing fantastically. That what else can you add into, because if you think of stadium, it's like, okay, full of play that FIFA gives you, FIFA or NFL or whatever league gives you the requirements, and then you add however many seats. But what makes a venue truly interesting and truly engaging with the fandom base is all these little things that you add on to make the experience even more fantastic for those people. Like now there is
what are those things?
For example, there is a kind of like a trend to have a space that you can actually bring some people that they were willing to pay for that, to have a next to the player tunnel or before the player tunnel, when the players are coming out of the changing rooms, going through up to the player tunnel, there is now space where you can have, instead of a wall, you have like a piece of glass that spectators that are willing to pay extra money to be in that room, they could see their heroes, because now actually athletes are the equivalent of heroes for some people, right? So they could see them waiting at the players' tunnel, or they could see them warming up before a game. So it's another type of experience that you can bring to the people. That is one example. Another example is we can actually have what we call sky terraces in some places. We have done this in T-Mobile Las Vegas, that it was like some seats, not every seat have the perfect views to the pitch. Some seats were not like perfectly aligned with sidelines of the field of play. So we said like, okay, why in those places we actually don't create like a towers? Those seats were not actually being sold really well because you cannot see properly.
Mhm.
But why we create some towers in those seats that then on top of those towers you create like a club terrace that it could be a super VIP experience. You are high up, good views of the field of play, but if you don't actually 100% interested on the game and you want to socialize and be in the game but also be with your colleagues, there is that kind of like offering. Problem with the old stadiums is that they had just one type of offering, like a seat and that's it. But right now we're seeing more and more different categories in the same. And I always like to do this kind of like analogy with the aviation industry. 50 years ago in the aviation was just one type of seats in an airplane.
Yes.
Right now you see VIP, business, premium economy, and some other airlines are coming up with ideas in between, like Air New Zealand are coming up with an economy seat that then can be transformed into a bed so you can sleep. So these add-on experiences offer a more spectrum of offerings for the user, spectators, that create a more interest for people, because you might decide like, oh, going to New Zealand, it was too far, but if it could be economy seat that is not super expensive, but I could be actually sleeping over the long haul, but I don't have enough money to pay myself a business ticket.
Sure.
That could be the decision whether you go to New Zealand or you don't go to New Zealand. But now because you have that option, you might decide to go there. So with the stadiums happen the same thing. And not only that, the clubs actually are demanding this interest because more VIP boxes could be sold at higher price, could be translated to bigger revenue. With only general admission seats, sometimes you cannot maintain stadium. So you need to actually have a different ranking. And if you go to Kaitak on the sevens, you will see that there is like a lot of different tiers for people that they are willing to pay a little bit extra for different type of experiences.
You make me feel a little bit old talking about the evolution of stadiums, because I remember when Real Oviedo was in first division in what they call now La Liga, era Primera División. I remember that the first great evolution was when UEFA made mandatory for all the stadium to be seated. When I was used to go to the game, it was standing up on the behind the goal. I'm getting emotional thinking about that time. And it is true. It changed a lot. I even saw a documentary not so long ago about one NFL stadium. I want to say it's Vegas because it's very fitting, but I'm not 100% sure. I think it's Las Vegas Raiders, in which they have some VIP boxes behind the touchdown line with jacuzzi in them, which is preposterous, but I mean, it's Las Vegas, so everything works in there.
No, but you may laugh, but we see that trend happening more and more. And sometimes you don't need to do actually permanent jacuzzis, for example. I think, if I remember correctly, I think it was MCG in Melbourne, that they actually did a temporary setup where you could have watching the a cricket match, you could actually have a small pool. Some seats were actually removed, but transformed into a pool, and you could have like a beer when you were in a pool watching the game. But in Japan as well, there is boxes where they have an onsen built up.
Amazing.
But actually that works very well, because you may think like, oh no, it's just an onsen for the event. But no, it is actually when there is no games on in the mornings, you can go to the onsen. You can pay to go to the onsen there. And that is something as well that we are trying to make with Kaitak. I mean, there is the main bar of the stadium that is called the Champions Bar. It will obviously serve for the events when there is like a big event, Hong Kong Sevens. It's going to be one of the longest bar counter in Asia, like 100 meters bar counter.
Wow. I want to see that.
That it will definitely be open for the event, but then during non-event days, it's also set up in a position that it is next to the facade, that you can open the doors of the facade, that is glass, to the park. So people outside of the stadium on a Sunday afternoon, you go there with your kids, and you can say like, oh, I would like to have a drink right now, or like nibbles or something to kind of like spend the afternoon here in this fantastic park. They will be able to open that bar to the park outside and close it off for security purposes to the ball of the stadium. So that flexibility for the operators nowadays is key, because then they can use the stadium,
Even
generate more
no
revenue when there is no games. There's such a big infrastructure that is mental, that some places they were just being used one day a week.
It's insane.
Yeah. So
if you think about it now, we from our point of view, yeah. I was going to mention something very similar. I think even in the new Bernabeu in Madrid, I mean, it's not the new Bernabeu, the renovated Bernabeu, they even have a club, like a proper discotheque that overwatches the stadium. That then, of course, can be open many times a week. What other things? This podcast will for sure is being recorded before the inauguration, but will be published after the inauguration because we are not that important yet. But I think you can tell us what other things will surprise people when they go to the main stadium, to this Pearl of the Orient. If you had to choose your favorite feature of the stadium.
No, I will say, I think I mentioned it before, the master planning, how easy is to go there. I mean, you have to think we are going to be in a place where it used to be an airport, where like 747s were actually like walking around that space. So it's a massive, it's like 28 hectares of land spread across 3 different levels. And I think the beautiful thing of that the stadium, probably because I know about this, but the magic will happen that when the people will feel that they can walk freely through so many places of the entire sports park without noticing what is happening behind doors. For example, what I mentioned is Hong Kong is the best example of the vertical city, right? I mean, you see that in Central, how the pedestrian life is a different level of the vehicular life. So that's something that happens as well in the main stadium and in the entire park. So we have a huge road that cuts North Precinct and the South Precinct that kind of like runs through the entire sports park. And one of the first challenges actually was how we overcome that. So the idea was actually we are creating a event plaza, what we call it event plaza, but it's actually a huge wide bridge that will connect both places, north and south, above the road. So even though there is a road there, you will not feel that is a vehicles passing through because you're going to be elevated. But that will bring a different purpose as well. That will actually allow the operation team and the security team and the artists and all the different things that are happening to kind of like avoid crossing the patrons and the users of the venue, because they're going to be in a different level.
Okay.
And those people will also be closer to the venue. So when they approach the main stadium, they're already going to be at what we call the level 2, like a 10-meter high. So it's very simple how you move around the entire sports park, because we knew that the site was huge. You needed to make it easy for people to navigate around. The reason why it's so breakdown as well is not casual, is because besides we wanted to make it very permeable so people could access the entire sports park from many different locations. It was that will help you to be orientated very well. So from all the spaces on the sports park, whatever you look, you know exactly where you're going to be. Like, what is the main stadium, or what is the arena, or where are the MTR stations? Because people need to know where they need to go. Not just for the people and optimization of the people's flow, but also for a safety point of view, right? And then when those people will be already arriving at the kind of like level 2 in that bridge, they will just go through a small distance of security access, so they don't feel that they will be through a lot of security because this could underwhelm the experience. And then few steps after the security line, they are already in the concourse. They are already at a higher level that you could see directly the game. So it's not like entering a ground floor, then you have to go up the stairs, then you have to go into the concourse. No, you are already in the concourse. So many people I've been bringing for like site visits, construction, and like showing what we are doing, they were saying like, this feels amazing, feels this transition between the outside and the inside so quick, and we're already in the field of play, in the concourse that you see directly your heroes playing the game.
No, I totally understand. I remember I was in December 2018. I went to New York. And I went. There was not a Knicks game. I'm a Knicks fan. But I did go to do the Madison Square Garden tour, and then I went for a game to the Barclays Center for the Brooklyn Nets. Two different eras of arena building. Madison Square Garden, iconic venue, but even though they have some features that are interesting. You had to enter, you had to go up. There was a certain hassle. Barclays Center, it was like 10 steps from the street to your seat.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
Yeah,
and it does, and I understand what you say. It does enhance your experience because you're 100%. Suddenly there.
100%. It's like going back to the aviation industry, like how hassle is to go through customs all the time. So going into, because of safety and security, you need to go through that to enter a stadium. But it's a hassle, right? I mean, it's kind of like, but now with like tickets, QR tickets and all that, and approaching blurring the boundary between outside and inside is very important for the people, that they don't feel that they are going through a huge process of being checked out, or like accessing. So that's very important to accommodate into nowadays stadiums.
We are extremely let's say we are bad accustomed to Hong Kong convenience. True, because I think 30% of the reason why I'll probably never leave this city, I mean probably one day I'll leave, but why other city has to give me way more to compensate is the fact that here the airport is so easy.
We're very spoiled.
It's pam. Yes, and I mean I do go to the airport every couple of weeks, so for me that's I totally understand what you mean. I think we are behaving very well because before the start of the podcast, there was a risk that we would get very technical, and we haven't so far. But I do have a technical question because in this type of projects, one thing is the origination of the idea, the inception of the project, and then the second thing is how to make it a reality in a feasible way when it comes to suppliers, manufacturers of materials, even the construction process, because you need to engage with contractors and so on and so forth. When I was studying this project, talking about the facade, I learned that the original design so the facade is made, correct me if I'm wrong, with triangular shapes. The original design, I read that, or I heard that they had 8,000 different shapes. And then, obviously, someone said, sorry guys, we need to come down from this 47,000, out of which we are working with 8,000 different types, into a smaller number. That decision is sensible and everyone can understand. What for me is mind-blowing, and I take my hat off, is the amount of reduction from 47,000 to 27,000 pieces. That's what I read. You can correct my numbers.
Yeah.
And from this is the crazy thing, from 8,000 shapes, to 2 shapes. How in heaven were you able to do this? And can you give us a little bit of insight in how important aspects like this are for the outcome of a project of this kind?
Well, first of all, to say that if you have infinite time and infinite money, you can do whatever you want, right? But because we were constrained by, a budget and a time, you need to find ways in every project. I think like every architect, every construction company has a praise on that. You need to have a certain level of optimization. I mean, because you have your design, you have your ideas that they are in place, but then the next process, and the one that I'm really interested on, that's why I love construction, is how to make an idea coming to life. How you actually make it coming to life to meet what we mentioned, the budget and the time constraints. So the facade was one of the items that it took, like, I can't remember how many iterations, but many different shape and iterations. And it's not just about the triangles or the amount of triangles and everything. It's like also how that this makes works for the building the best, because the facade started to be like something more flat, but then when we realized that we had to have a roof that opens and closes, we didn't want to that roof to be seen from outside, because we wanted to represent the shape of the pearl. So then the facade start actually being massaged a little bit and deformed to kind of like, okay, how we can change this geometry, still keep the essence of the pearl, to hide the roof that is going to be actually big structure, opens and close, to kind of like maintain that perfect oval shape. And yeah, regarding the numbers of panels, that was part of the optimization process, because previously, I mean, with those thousands of different panels, and not just the fabrication process will cost more money and more time, potentially delaying everything, but also the installation will be a nightmare for whoever wants to install that. So new technologies have helped on that, like parametric design was essential tool to make this happen, and how we could actually optimize the design to make sure that we're meeting budget, time, help with efficiency of the construction, but still keep the same design intention. So it's true that it's only 2 panels, but actually it's like 4 different variations, because we play with the symmetry, up, down, left, and right. So that actually keeps the dynamism on the facade, because if it was just like 2 triangles positioned in the same place,
it doesn't feel like there are 2.
Yeah, you feel that. So we wanted to keep that dynamism, and that also actually is related to the pearl, because we look at a pearl in the microscope, and the cracks that the pearl shows something that gives us the idea how we can actually build the facade. So we wanted to represent those cracks with the triangles, and we needed to make it very dynamic, that kind of like movement of the triangle. So when you see close to the facade, when you're close to the stadium, very close to the facade, you don't feel that there is a repetition of the same triangle. So the triangles are like very directions, and there is, as you mentioned, 2 types: symmetry, like being flipped vertically and horizontally, and then there is just small little nuances in one of the vertex to kind of like help with the contour of the facade, because you need to remember that it's rounded, right? So we needed to adjust a little bit of the triangles in different sections of the curve to make sure that all the gaps between different panels are consistent. Then we actually had to optimize as well the radius of the facade, because before I can't remember how many we had, but yeah, we have reduced it to only 4 radius of the facade. That help a lot as well to set up the triangle position, set up the triangle geometry, and that can be without the help of the parametric design, Grasshopper, Rhino. Now getting too technical, but yeah, that was part of like our fantastic facade team that did, I don't know, countless iterations up to a point that we couldn't optimize more without jeopardizing the design intent. So that, when we present that to the client, they agreed with that. We didn't want to make the panels too big, because then it will look too faceted. We wanted to show that kind of like curve and that belly on the facade. So we agreed that, yeah, from like 47,000 to 27,000 panels.
Wow.
So that was, yeah, a great achievement. And then the installation as well, we use like QR codes. Each panel has its own personal QR code. So that's another level of technology to help installation and to know where each panel goes,
yeah.
where And then another fantastic that probably the nerds of architecture see, that you've seen in many buildings, that you need to have a ventilation louvers,
Mm-hmm.
like big ugly openings for like ventilation of like renovation of the air. You will not see on the entire facade any openings for that purpose, because has been designed to get like air intake and air exhaust in different parts where they are not seen by the public. So the
Okay.
facade is like a perfect seamless shape across the entire 360 part of the facade, with only one big window opening. That's also a design feature that we wanted to kind of like create a visual connection with the island and with the old stadium. And that was also set up on the south stand. I mean, for the people of listening here, south stand is an iconic space for the Hong Kong Sevens.
Mm-hmm.
And the design of the building actually has been purposely made for the events that they will happen in Hong Kong, right? So fit for the purpose of the city. So the Hong Kong Sevens will have the south stand with a massive window looking back to the Hong Kong island, and that building that connection with the old stadium.
So people, when they're watching the game, there was one criticism. This is actually, I'm not making this up. People that are very loyal to the Sevens, they said, now next year we're gonna have to go to Kai Tak. It's gonna take so long to go to Wan Chai after the games. Now from the game they can see Wan Chai, so they know exactly where they have to go.
But yes, true, if they want to go to Wan Chai, but the design is made for the events of Hong Kong. So Hong Kong Sevens is one of the main events, sports events in Hong Kong. So our challenge to those people will be, why do you have to go to Wan Chai? There's going to be plenty of bars, there's going to be plenty of spaces, and there is a huge park as well that they're going to be utilized for the tents of the different sponsors of different bars. So actually you can stay in Kai Tak. You don't really need to go to Wan Chai if you want to continue the party. So that will be my challenge to the people. Don't leave, stay, and enjoy the pre, during, and after party of the stadium, of the Sevens.
I was not expecting that pitch, but I appreciate it. I think you won over everyone that is watching the podcast. I will confess something. I've never been to the Sevens, but I will go. Traveling for work every year happened. That happened to be a seven. I was out, but I'll go to the next one. I'm very curious. Are you gonna be in the grand opening March 1st?
Yes,
Excited?
I'll be there. Excited. It's gonna be a lot of things happening. So yeah, that is a good rehearsal to kind of like explain later on what has been like the Hong Kong for. Because for me, Hong Kong Kai Tak Sports Park, is all news, right? I've been talking about this for like the past 6 years. For everybody else, it's new news. Like,
yes,
it's happening now. They're hearing about Kai Tak Sports Park for the first time now. But for me, I've been like talking about this for so long. So it's a good time to rehearse my speech for the newcomers.
How do you feel? Do you feel like after you run a marathon? How is life for the architects and the rest of professionals of Populous and other companies that have been in the in a project for so long? Now you see the birth. I imagine there is a satisfaction. What other feelings do you experience?
I mean, I'll say this process have been challenging, very rewarding as well to see it finally open, because it's I don't know, designing a building at this scale is, I mean, it's too far, but it's kind of like having a baby, right? Is you are and for me it was even more personal because I joined Populous when I had my 2 kids.
Okay.
So I've seen my kids growing at the same time that I've seen Kai Tak Sports Park growing. So that's why I'm making that similarity, because it's like watching your kids growing. And right now, Kai Tak Sport Park is at an age that he can actually continue his path without us, right? So it's like my kids achieving like 18 years old, and now they go to live their life. So it's kind of like that kind of like a feeling. It's very a bit like sentimental. I don't want to become like too sentimental today, but no, it's been great to see what Kai Tak Sports Park has become. And I'm very curious to see, I'm very eager to see how the people of Hong Kong accepts this new member of the city as well, because it's like a big thing for the city. So sometimes there's buildings that the community rejects, right? Like they don't want to go there. So I'm very curious, and hopefully that this is embraced by the Hong Kong community and the wider region as well, that a lot of people come to see Kai Tak. So I think that is going to happen with the Sevens, that is going to happen with Coldplay, and with the fantastic events that they are going to be happening this year.
Very well, very well. I hope that we get some NBA games, some UFC, some really Real Madrid, not the legends, because otherwise it's going to be crazy. But in any case, Ismael, congratulations to you. Congratulations to all the Populous team. Congratulations to all the, let's say, Hong Kong government and organizations that have been behind this project. I'm a big fan of projects that have a good ending or a good beginning, I should say. So thank you very much. Thank you for coming. You are welcome all the time.
Very good.
David, did we do well? Did you like the episode? I enjoyed a lot. I hope people that made it to the end did as well. Today is really a Friday, and you should be listening to it just before the weekend. So be happy, crack open a beer for yourselves or whatever your preferred drink is, alcoholic or not, and be happy. That's the most important thing. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone. Ciao, 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 ciao.